date someone in Korean entertainment, and you're signing up for non-stop scrutiny. Fans dissect your every move, paparazzi follow your every date, and one rumor can end a relationship overnight. Most don't even make it a year. But these 9 relationships lasted years, some even decades. One couple stayed together for over 20 years without ever walking down the aisle. Another breakup became so controversial that fans are still debating who ended it. But first, an actor who plays devoted men for a living and turned out to be better at it off camera. Namkoong Min is one of the best actors of his generation now. Back in 2015 he wasn't, and he decided he wanted to direct instead. And much to his surprise, he got something better out of it than a film. Here's how it actually happened, in his own telling. He was supposed to fly to China to shoot a movie. The lead actress got injured, filming was pushed back 2 months, and he was left with an empty diary. So he took a script he'd written himself and paid for the whole thing out of his own pocket. In that film, there was one female character with no lines at all. She looked like a model to him. That was Jin Ah-reum. And here's the part that makes this whole story what it is. They never spoke. Not once. The entire shoot. Afterwards, he got her number from a friend and rang her, and she was shocked to hear from him. She'd seemed so kind, he said, that he decided to gather the courage and tell her. So he did. He'd been drinking, and the way he put it was, "Want to date?" She said no. He's diagnosed his own problem since. He has no technique, he says, because he's too honest. If he'd just kept quiet, it would have gone fine. Kim Suk, hosting, told him she'd have turned him down too. Her reason was simpler. At first, she thought he was a bit of a player. It was only the more she saw of him that she decided he was serious and not like a celebrity at all. He asked again anyway. She turned him down again. He kept at it for 2 months. On the night before his flight to China, he drove over at dawn, said he wanted to see her face, and asked her one more time. She said no for the 3rd time. He's the sort who tries until there's nothing left to try and then stops cleanly. So he decided he'd said enough to have no regrets and went to the airport. He was going through immigration when a long message arrived from her. She was explaining herself. He'd been too fast, she said, and it had flustered her. She'd like him to slow down. He was on a plane to China for 2 months. They met properly when he got back. The rumors started the following year, and they did something almost nobody in Korean entertainment does. They confirmed it within 30 minutes. At the 2017 KBS Drama Awards, Namkoong Min won and thanked her from the stage in front of the country. "Ah-reum," he said, "thank you and I love you." She had no idea it was coming and said afterwards that the tears just burst out of her because she was the one who'd watched from beside him how hard it had all been. Then he proposed. On one knee with a ring, because he'd watched too many foreign films growing up and was certain that was how it had to be done. He also hid a camera so the whole thing would be filmed. The video went viral when it got out. And when the two of them are in a cold spell now, or something awkward is sitting between them, he goes and watches it again. They married in October 2022. This June, his agency announced she was pregnant. And on the 26th of July, they had a son. 11 years after a short film he only made because somebody else got injured, the man who plays devoted husbands for a living turned out to be one. This time with a permanent happy ending. That's the last easy one. The next couple met because a newspaper printed something about them that wasn't true. What happens when you bring your girlfriend into your own agency and she becomes more famous than you? Yoon Kye-sang and Honey Lee found out. And they only got together in the first place because a newspaper got a story wrong. In January 2013, the Korean press reported the two of them had flown to Bali together. The details were specific: a night flight on the 17th, a pool villa at a named hotel, back in a week. Both agencies denied it. She'd gone because a friend was out there, they said, and he happened to be there with his family. Both camps also insisted the two had never met, which was wrong. They had the year before at the Busan International Film Festival. On the 24th of January, she flew home from Bali alone, and the story died. Except they'd just spent a fortnight being publicly accused of a relationship they weren't having. So they met up to talk about it, found they had friends in common and the same taste in films, and got on well. By Valentine's Day, they were seeing each other properly. On the 22nd of February, a photographer caught them on a real date, and the headline called them the couple the rumor had made. One of his old bandmates said they might never have got together without it. Having already watched a false rumor run for a fortnight, they decided there was no point hiding the real thing. So they confirmed it immediately, which almost nobody in that industry does. open, but not on display. They never promoted together, rarely mentioned each other, and there is almost no footage of them as a couple. He signed with Na-ra Entertainment that August. She joined the following year, introduced through him, so for 6 years they shared managers and staff. And over those 7 years, she overtook him. Honey Lee went from a pageant winner nobody quite believed in to one of the most bankable actresses in the country. He stayed roughly where he'd always been. He was asked about marriage more than once and never gave anybody anything. Nothing has changed from last year or the year before that, he said. So I don't have anything to say. We're happily dating. Then the rumors started. On the 11th of June, 2020, Na-ra Entertainment confirmed it. The two had recently ended their romantic relationship and decided to remain good colleagues, and the agency asked for continued support for both actors. So far, so ordinary. Two people grew apart, an agency wrote a sentence, everybody moved on. Except within days, Yoon Kye-sang terminated his contract with Na-ra Entertainment. Whatever that decision was actually about, nobody outside the building knows. The statement said only that it came after a long discussion, that both sides had reached a settlement, and that he planned to take some time to rest. 7 years, shared managers, shared offices, and when it ended he walked out, and nobody ever explained why. Less than a year later, his new agency announced he was seeing somebody. A non-celebrity, introduced by an acquaintance, and no more detail than that. 7 years is a long time. And we never really got to know them as a couple at all. It started because of a story that wasn't true, it lasted, it ended, and both of them carried on as though nothing much had happened. Still, at least those two could stand to be in the same room afterwards. The next couple can't. There is a drama in Korea so loved that people still rewatch it every winter. It can never hold a proper reunion, and Ryu Jun-yeol and Hyeri are the reason. They met on it, playing teenagers, which neither of them was at the time. Reply 1988 is one of the most loved Korean dramas ever made, and a large part of why is that the cast genuinely seem to like each other. It's about a group of neighborhood kids growing up in the same alley, and the whole thing only works if you believe they've known each other their entire lives. The two of them played opposite each other in it. And somewhere in the middle of pretending to fall in love in a story set 30 years earlier, they did it for real. They confirmed it in August 2017, 2 years after they met, and for the next 6 years, they were the couple that show had produced. People wanted them to last because of what the drama had been. Then in 2023, it ended, and the aftermath was considerably messier than the relationship had ever been. A public fallout that pulled in other names and ran for months, long past the point where anybody involved wanted it to. But that's a story for another time. There are reunion specials for shows like Reply 1988. There are anniversary episodes, cast interviews, variety appearances where everybody turns up and laughs about the alley they grew up in. And then the 10th anniversary came round. In December 2025, TVN made a special. The whole Sangmun-dong cast back together, a 2-day trip to Gangwon province. Everybody in their old clothes recreating the old photographs. 16 actors. It was exactly the reunion the fans had been asking for since the show ended. Both of them took part. Neither of them appeared on screen with the other. Not once, across the whole thing. The way it was managed is simple, but heartbreaking nonetheless. The families were filmed gathering separately first, and Hyeri was at one of those gatherings, and Ryu Jun-yeol wasn't. He then turned up at a different family's gathering, filmed the opening segment, and left before the trip itself began. Their paths were staggered so precisely that they never once crossed a camera together. The official line held, "Scheduling conflicts," said his agency. He was in the middle of shooting a Netflix thriller. The producer went further and said the entire Sangmun-dong family had turned up, nobody was missing, and that Ryu Jun-yeol had stopped by in the morning before leaving for his shoot. Nobody watching believed it was only about scheduling. One comment that went round afterwards put it plainly. It was funny how he only showed up when she wasn't there. There was a dinner, too, filmed for a YouTube channel and posted a week before the special. Same story, both of them in the room across the evening, never in the same shot. Much to everyone's credit, at least they showed up. That's what's left of it. A drama the whole country loves, a cast that genuinely does still meet up, and two people at the center of it who now have to be scheduled around each other. Whatever the show does for its next anniversary, it will do it the same way. The next couple ended 15 months ago, and this March, one of them sat on a talk show and cried about wanting a family. For the first 6 of their 9 years, Lee Dong-hwi and Jung-hoon were an ordinary couple in the industry. Then her world got very suddenly much bigger than his, and nothing about it was ordinary again. They also started from further apart than any couple here. Lee Dong-hwi is one of those permanent fixtures in Korean drama. Not a huge star, but a face you know instantly, and the kind of actor a production hires because he will not let a scene down. Jung-hoon had no acting experience at all. She was a model, working runways with no particular reason to think she'd ever act in anything. Nobody actually knows how they met. Both were so careful about each other in public that the Korean press has written plainly that no account of their first meeting exists. What he has said is why. He fell for her because of how hard she worked. The common ground was fashion, and he later turned up at Seoul Fashion Week to watch her walk. They started dating in 2015 and went public the following year. And for a while, they were just a young couple in the industry. And then, Squid Game happened. She became one of the most recognizable people on the planet, essentially overnight. A Screen Actors Guild Award, then an Emmy nomination for a role she'd auditioned for with no acting experience whatsoever. That's the moment her world got bigger. The schedule stopped lining up, and for most of the year there was an ocean between them. He was still there, and she still talked about him. Around that time, David Beckham came to Korea, and she met him. Lee Dong-hwi is a football obsessive, and he begged her for an autograph. So she went and asked David Beckham to sign something, because her boyfriend was a fan. Then, in August 2024, he was filming a travel show in Los Angeles. Sitting in the back of a taxi, he asked the driver whether he knew Squid Game. The driver said he did. So Lee Dong-hwi told him there was a character called Se-byuk, and that she was his girlfriend as well as his best friend. 3 months later, on the 26th of November, both actors confirmed they had separated after 9 years. Neither of them gave a reason, and neither agency offered one. In the time since, nobody close to either of them has said anything at all, which means everything you may have read about why is somebody guessing. What can be said is where she was standing when it happened. She'd signed with CAA and finished her first English-speaking role opposite Cate Blanchett in Alfonso Cuarón's Disclaimer. Whether any of that had anything to do with it, nobody knows, and nobody is going to say. It's just a hard thing to look at. 9 years, ending in the exact stretch where she was finally getting the things she'd been reaching for. In March of this year, Lee Dong-hwi went on You Quiz on the Block and talked about losing close friends and how it had changed what he wanted. Starting a family, he said, had become the thing he wanted most. He was in tears saying it. He was 15 months out of a 9-year relationship at the time. He may well get there one day. It just won't be with her. 9 years, and that's the longest yet. The next ran a full decade, broke up halfway through, and went back for more. Gong Hyo-jin and Ryu Sung-boom were born the same year and met on the same drama. And 12 years after it ended, he still brings her up on the radio, unprompted, to tell a story about her. In early 2002, they were cast in the same SBS drama. Both 21, both nobody in particular yet. They became friends on that job, and then they became something else. Their own agency later described it exactly that way. They developed from friends into a couple. For the next year, they were everywhere together. They took another film that same year and turned up at public events side by side, which almost nobody in that industry did then, and not many do now. Then, in 2003, they broke up. And here's where it gets unusual, because they did not disappear from each other's lives. In 2006, while they were still apart, he took a special appearance in one of her films. The press immediately decided they were back together, and both of them said nothing. Then, in 2008, they appeared in a film directed by his older brother and confirmed it. 5 years apart, and they were a couple again. The second run lasted 4 more years. In 2010, he did a cameo in Pasta, one of the dramas that made her career. He's since explained how. He was having dinner near the set, she rang and asked him to come and do it, and promised it would only take 30 minutes. In April 2012, it ended for good. Their agency announced it that August, said the decision came after a long stretch of talking it through, and went out of its way to deny that another actor was involved. She then spent the next decade being asked about it, because she kept saying publicly that she was never getting married. She said it enough times that she later admitted the pattern herself. Her mother went on television and said there was really no need for her to marry at all. In March 2022, she went to Sun Ye-jin's wedding to Hyun-bin, and she caught the bridal bouquet. And 7 months after that, to the surprise of absolutely everybody, she married the singer Kevin Oh. A private ceremony in New York, no guest list anybody knew about, and the country found out from a single photograph of their rings. As for him, he also married and had a daughter. And in December 2024, on a radio show, he brought Gong Hyo-jin up himself, unprompted, to tell the pasta story. 12 years on, and he still calls her by her first name on air. That's one way a 10-year relationship goes. The next one had something in the middle of it that most couples don't survive. Put Kim Woo-bin and Shin Min-ah in the same sentence, and you have the closest thing Korea has to a power couple. He came out of the 2010s as one of the most in-demand leading men of his generation. She had been a household name since before he started, the sort of actress who makes a drama work simply by being in it. Of course, they were the it couple. They were always going to be. They met on a clothing campaign in 2014. 2 models hired for the same advertisement, and he spent most of the shoot calling her Nuna. Their agencies confirmed the relationship in July the following year. 2 years later, in the middle of a run of back-to-back schedules, he noticed something wrong with his body and went to a hospital to find out what it was. He was 27 years old, and the diagnosis was nasopharyngeal cancer. He stopped working, and then he stopped appearing anywhere at all, and nobody could tell you when or whether he was coming back. His career stopped at exactly the point it should have been taking off. She was at the hospital with him. She went with him to radiation and rearranged her own schedule around his treatment, which he has talked about since. And she said nothing about any of it. Not one interview, not one comment. In an industry where a devoted partner is a publicity asset, she never once traded on it. Publicly, for years, there was silence. Privately, by the only account that matters, which is his, she never left his side. Eventually, he came back. Slowly at first, then properly, until by the 2020s he was working again at the level he'd been at before any of it. Somewhere in there, they settled into a habit. Whenever one of them was filming, a coffee truck would turn up on set from the other. The notes were not private. To all staff and actors, one of his read, "Stay strong, you have my full support. Especially Shin Min-ah, I support you very much." On the 20th of November, 2025, AM Entertainment announced they were getting married. They had promised to become partners for life, the statement said, because of the depth of trust built over so many years together. He told his fans himself that day in a handwritten letter. He wanted them to hear it first. He wrote, "Yes, I'm getting married. After many years together, we have decided to build a family and walk forward side by side." The invitation was made by hand. She drew it, a small sketch of him in a bow tie and her in a crown and gown, and he did the lettering. At the bottom, it said illustration by Shin Min-ah, lettering by Kim Woo-bin. They married on the 20th of December at the Shilla Hotel in Seoul. Lee Kwang-soo was master of ceremonies, and An Bo-hyun, who has known Kim Woo-bin for 20 years, was filmed wiping his eyes in the audience. And for the song, somebody stood up and sang Romantic Sunday, the theme from Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha, which is her drama. 10 years, 1 cancer diagnosis, and a wedding that ended with her own love song being played back to her. 2 actors who have spent their careers handing us happy endings finally got one of their own, which, for a couple who very nearly didn't get here at all, is not a bad way for it to finish. That's 10 years ending in the best way it could. The next ended in the worst, and the country found out by accident. Now this couple was the gold standard. 14 years, and the couple Kyung-ho and Sooyoung everybody pointed at when they wanted to name one that had it right. Until one morning a stranger noticed something on a phone. They'd met in 2012 through a church they both attended and a university they'd both been to. Their agencies denied the rumors through the following year, and then in January 2014, they simply confirmed it and stopped pretending. And the reason the country believed in them is that he never stopped saying so. On a talk show last year, he explained where it came from. Kyung-ho's father is a television producer, and he had not wanted his son to be an actor. For years, his son couldn't show him much to justify the choice either. He said plainly that he felt awful about that. What got him through it was her. "She holds me steady," he said. And then the line people went back to afterwards. "If it weren't for this woman, I think I could have turned into a really disappointing, really bad actor." He called her his pride, not his partner. the thing he was proudest of. Her version was shorter, and she gave it at 22, weeks after they went public. He was her first boyfriend, and she didn't really know what any of it was supposed to feel like. 14 years of that. Around the 10-year mark, somebody asked him about marriage, and he said they'd get there when the time was right. As recently as last year, he was still calling her the center of his life outside acting. People stopped asking after a while. They just assumed. Then, on the morning of the 9th of June this year, somebody noticed the two accounts had gone quiet on each other. It had happened once before. Around year 10, he'd unfollowed her. The same panic went round. And then he simply followed her again, and everyone decided it had been a glitch. So for a few hours that morning, a lot of people assumed the same thing. That afternoon, both agencies confirmed it. They had broken up, they would remain good colleagues, the timing was private. Busy schedules, both sides said, appeared to have had something to do with it. 14 years. And that was the whole explanation. And then the internet went looking for somebody to blame. 14 years and no wedding, people said. Maybe he never meant to. Maybe she waited too long. The same interviews where he'd called her the center of his life were pulled back up and read as evidence. None of which anybody can verify, because the only thing either agency said was that it was private. But nobody argues this hard about a couple they didn't believe in. 14 years of watching two people be kind about each other in public had left the whole country feeling owed an explanation. And there was never going to be one. A whole country picked sides over whose fault it was. The next two never gave anybody the chance. Everybody told Han-geun she was making a mistake. She was 22, at the peak of her career, and about to marry a man she had known for 2 years. Kyung-ho and Sooyoung needed 14 years and never got there. Jung-hoon needed 2. Han-geun was never supposed to be an actress. She turned up in a news clip filmed at a KBS quiz show. A scout saw it, and by 22, she was one of the most recognizable women in the country. By 23, she'd won Best New Actress at the KBS Drama Awards and starred in a family drama that peaked at 45% of the country watching, which is the point at which nobody sensible gets married. She met Jung-hoon in 2003 on the set of a daily drama called Yellow Handkerchief, where the two of them played a married couple. They started seeing each other properly the following year. On the 31st of December, 2004, the 600th day since they'd met, he proposed. Then they did something almost nobody does. Rather than wait to be exposed, they called a press conference in Seoul in January 2005 and announced the wedding themselves. Korean actresses do not marry at 23. The pattern is to wait until the mid-30s, because the work is easier to get before you do. She did it anyway, at exactly the point her career should have been taking off, and plenty of people said out loud that it wouldn't hold. Her explanation, given years later on a YouTube program called Very Personal Museum, was 4 words long. She didn't want to lose him. Her father's advice was similarly short. "If you think this is the one," he told her, "don't hesitate." Then it got harder. 6 months after the wedding, Jung-hoon enlisted and was gone for 2 years. So their marriage began with the two of them apart, at the exact moment his own career was moving from supporting television roles to leading film parts. She stepped back from acting for long stretches to raise their 2 children, and came back when she wanted to, rather than when the industry expected her to. 23 years later, it has held. And in 2022, she turned up as a guest on 2 Days and One Night, the variety show where her husband is a permanent cast member. An ordinary thing for a wife to do, a slightly extraordinary one for 2 people famous since 2003. Almost every long relationship in that industry has come apart. This one didn't, and nobody involved has ever explained why beyond the obvious. There is nothing else to tell you about them. 23 years and a wedding. The last couple have 3 years more and no wedding at all, and at one point they were far too broke to consider one. 26 years together, and oh, Na-ra still corrects anybody who calls Kim Do-hoon her husband. They have never married, and the reason is not the one you'd assume. In the year 2000, both of them were working in musical theater. They met during a production of Empress Myeong-song, which is about as big as Korean musical theater gets, and her account of how it actually started is not the one you'd write for a drama. They were at a gathering after a performance. She drank too much, went outside and was sick, and he came out and patted her back. That, she says, is the moment she fell for him. So she kissed him with the mouth she'd just been sick with. They have been together ever since. which comes to 26 years. To put that in perspective, when they met, none of the other 9 couples had started. Kim Woo-bin was 11 years old. Reply 1988 was 15 years from being written. It has not been an easy 26 years. Then the financial crisis came. Her family's finances collapsed, she took work in Japan because there wasn't another option, and he followed her out there. Then it got worse. She left Japan briefly and needed her theater company to send her visa documents so she could return. Somebody in the office held on to them on purpose. Somebody inside that company disliked her enough to simply not send them. She was locked out of the country for a year. He had gone to Japan for her. And because he had no idea when she'd be allowed back, he waited. For 9 months of it, he was living on the street. Her description of that stretch, the two of them living like beggars on opposite sides of the sea. She eventually borrowed money to buy the plane ticket. When she finally got through the airport and saw him, he had got so thin she didn't recognize him. For 3 of those 26 years, there was nothing to photograph. Just 2 people in different countries. Both of them broke. Because there were such stories, she said afterwards, they can only have each other. They still argue, fiercely by her account, but in 26 years, neither of them has ever actually said the word. She's also let slip that he games it. If he fancies going somewhere for a few days, he'll pick a fight on purpose to give himself the excuse. And the way it ends hasn't changed in a quarter of a century. After an enormous row, one of them says, "You're back? Have you eaten?" And that's the whole thing. After all of it, they are still not married. When a fellow actor referred to Kim Do-hoon as her husband on a variety show, she corrected him on the spot. "He's not my husband," she said. "He's my boyfriend. We're not married." His own explanation is disarmingly plain. "It's convenient being together," he said, "and he's satisfied with things as they are, so he doesn't think there's any need to register a marriage." She isn't opposed to it. They've just been busy. And every year, they say maybe next year. 26 years of next year. She was asked about him after all that time, and her answer was this. She's been with him for 26 years, she said, and she still doesn't know what's inside him. She doesn't think she'll know until the very end. So tell me which one surprised you the most. And if there's a couple you were certain would last forever and didn't, I want to hear about them, because those comments are always the interesting ones, and I read every single one. And if you'd rather see the ones that actually made it, click the video on your screen for the K-drama couples still together in 2026.